is a right? The concept of rights is very interesting because you don't know what is fundamentally your right, what is innate to be human, what can't humans be taken away from. And throughout various societies and cultures, the idea of rights a person has virtually by existing is non-existent. So when rights exist, some people think of a right to food or a right to shelter or a right to healthcare as a right. But if those things are inalienable, then would you be able to have those things on a desert island by yourself? Probably not. So you need a definition of rights that is universal, that can't be taken away from you, that is inherent to human. So what are rights? I would say that if there was a such thing as rights, it would mainly be an idea that it still exists in any context, whether you are in any country, any place on earth, by yourself or with others. So probably one of them is freedom of conscience. You can think whatever you want. You may not be able to say whatever you want or promote whatever you want, but you can at least think what you want. That is a fundamental right, freedom of conscience, because no one can control your thoughts. Now, whether governments choose to expand the right of freedom of conscience to freedom of speech and freedom of religion, that is another matter. Another thing, this is a relatively limited right, but I would say the right to free movement is also a right. There's nothing virtually stopping a person from walking from some place to another place to travel wherever they want, as long as they have the capability and means to do so. I feel like the idea of borders are fundamentally against the right of free movement, and the idea of a passport is against the idea of rights. You probably shouldn't need an ID to do anything. This idea of IDs, passports, government documents to identify who you are and what you're doing. That idea is against liberty because it enables a government to easily restrict your rights and expand state power to an unnecessary level. Even things like digital IDs or IP addresses or things or required identification that can be enabled and expanded by other people or governments is a dangerous idea. The idea of IDs, privacy, freedom of movement can mix with privacy rights, but another thing is the right to relative privacy, and that right is not an absolute right. Humans are probably allowed to be free to be alone with their thoughts, at least, if not physically alone, mentally alone. Those are the three main rights I see. If I can think of other rights, I'll let you know. But fundamentally, I believe there are no such thing as positive rights, like things you are entitled to have just by virtue of existing, if there are rights. The government can restrict your rights heavily, and extremely oppressive governments can increase those restrictions, but fundamentally, a right cannot be taken away from you if it isn't a right. And that is what goes with rights and natural law. Also, another right would probably be self-defense, but I'll get into that later. Thank you.